Blog Talk Radio.
Uh-oh, guess what day it is? Julie, Julie, guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Anybody? Mike. What day is it, Mike? Woo-hoo! Leslie, guess what today is? Leslie, guess what today is?
It's Hump Day.
Hump Day!
It's Hump Day.
Hump Day!
Yeah, this is Donelson Files, Tom Donelson and Coco Konski. And
hey.
I'm Tom Donelson. And I know we talked about how we were going to do the intro, and I already forgot how we were going to do it.
And I totally paused. So we were going to do the intro where I would be introducing. So, but my mind was like elsewhere. So, Hi everyone. My name is Coco. I am a writer, producer. I do marketing. I do a lot of things. And I also co-host the show Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And my lovely host, Tom, why don't you take it away?
Yes. Okay, I am the chairman of America's PAC and a research associate and project director for America's Majority Foundation and the author of 8 books, including The Rise of National Populism and Democratic Socialism. And,
right.
Coco, take it away.
I wanted to, I know this is completely off topic, not political whatsoever, but if any of you guys who are listening to the show watch 90 Day Fiancé, please give us a call. Okay, I have so much to talk about this show. First of all, Tom, I don't know if you've heard of the show called 90 Day Fiancé. I have been watching it since 2016, and oh my God, this show is like the reason why I remain single. I'll be very honest, because I look at these women on the show, and they're in love. But it's so obvious most of those men are using them from a green card. It is so sad. Example, Nicole and Azan. For you guys that watch the show, Nicole is from Florida and Azan is from Morocco. And it is so painfully obvious how much he's using her that it is like, it blows my mind how someone can be in this much denial, forcing someone to love them. They've been trying to get married for 4 seasons already, and he still doesn't want to get married, and he's been caught cheating, all this. So I know this is really totally not what we talk about, but I was so invested in this show that I have been watching it on repeat for the last 48 hours. Like, I keep rewatching, and I keep thinking to myself, how are these women? How do they put up with it? How do they not know that these men are using them? It is so sad. And to get a green card, listen, look, I have friends who got married and they got a green card, but they generally like the person, and the person generally likes them. And I'm watching the show, and my mind is like, thank God I am single, Tom. Thank God. Yeah. Because I'd rather be single than having someone use me, steal my money, have affairs on me. And then the best part of it all, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but when you bring someone into the country on a marriage visa, even if you get divorced, you are obligated for the next 10 years to take care of them and pay all their bills. It's like bringing a child over, and you have to take care of that person for at least 10 years. It doesn't matter if you got divorced. I mean, to me, that's insane. I don't know about you, but I'm watching the show and I'm thinking to myself, are they that desperate? For me, it's like a desperate show, but it's just such a funny and just like it's a WTF. It's really my guilty pleasure. So if any of you guys watch 90 Day Fiancé, please give us a call, and I want to discuss the show because my mind is blown.
Yeah. Okay. Now, by the way, you call this number 646-929-0130. 646-929-0130.
Please, if you guys watch the show, I got to talk to someone. I'm the only person I know that watches the show that I know in real life. and I will actually drag my brother to come and watch it. I will force him to watch. I used to force him to watch like 8 hours of the show with me, and he's like even like WTF, like these people are stupid. But yeah, it was the brand new episode aired, and it made me pull my hair out because half of these women and these guys are like complete. Like we're gonna talk about the guys. Really quick before we get into it, there's a brand new season of 90 Day Fiancé The Other Way, which basically entails that the men or women actually go to the foreign country and live there. And there's one person, he's Mormon, and he spent $40,000 in cash. In cash, he sold his car, he sold his property, so he could fund this girl. And I'm just saying, wouldn't having a hooker or an escort just be easier? I mean, you can't delude yourself like you're so in love with this. No, I'm being very serious. Like and the best part of it all, like, you know, she doesn't want to come to America. She hates America, so he's leaving to go to Ecuador with her. And where she lives is a village where pigs roam, literally. You know, and I'm just thinking to myself, oh my God, this guy's completely deluded. And the worst part is, he's a good-looking guy. Like, he would not have any problem landing a girl, and the woman that he ends up with is, like, demanding, like, $20,000 in cash. I need this, I need that. And he's just like, okay. Oh, my God. I'm sorry. I had to get it off my chest. I was very upset at that. I'm very upset that, you know, these men are stupid as well, as worse than the women, because they know that they're getting duped, and they continue it. $40,000 in cash, Tom. Like, what?
Oh yeah. I would say, you know, here's the thing. You know, sometimes with some of the stuff that we put on like this, or like some of this programs yesterday, you know, stories, you know, they may sound undisconnected or total, but they kind of reflect things going on in America. That, let's just be blunt. 30 years ago, we'd be saying, you know, this show wouldn't get on the air because people would be saying, this is crazy.
Right.
These people are crazy.
Right.
We wouldn't be sitting there. And today it's like it's almost like watching a train wreck. I mean, half of America is enjoying. That's the best
part of the show. Yes, that's the best part.
Yeah.
It's like you're watching this, and like I cannot feel sorry for this one woman, Nicole. I refuse. She and the worst part is they'll drag their kids across the country to meet this guy they never even spoke to on the phone or Skyped with, and they're like gonna get married to them. Yeah. Are you kidding me? Listen, I've done really stupid crap for men. I've flown for guys. I'm not one to, like, you know, be a hypocrite, because I have done that. I have been in a relationship where, like, I would fly to meet them. Never again. But I would never fly to Morocco or, like, halfway around some third world country. I mean, my God. To me, this just screams desperate.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, somebody said to me, Morocco and Ecuador, these are like two countries that I would not put it on my top 10, 15, 20, or top 50 list that I got to go see.
Right.
I seriously, I mean,
right.
And certainly,
I mean, but like these, yes. I mean, the fact of the matter is, like, these people never met each other. They may have Skyped or they may have, like, texted, but okay, because I text them means I'm going to fly halfway around the world to see them. They could be a serial killer. And for them to, like, favorite, I'm going to go really quickly. I'm going to go to my favorite part of that scene was they were supposed to meet up in Grenada, and what happens? He cashed out her ticket. They were supposed to open the shop. $6,000 she had sent him. Gone. And she's such in denial that she's like, oh, it's okay. No, it's not okay, girl. He literally stole from you, and you're still supporting him. You don't want a husband, you want a child. I'm sorry. You don't want a husband, you want a child. That's the matter. I mean, it pisses me off so much that these people are like this. I'm sorry. It just does.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm going to say, we're going to take a quick promo right here, and then we're going to be right back. This is the Donelson Files, Tom Donelson, Coco Konski, and we'll be right back on the Donelson Files and the Bachelor Pad Radio Network.
If you want to hear another view of the latest developments in Trump's Washington, listen to the Dr. Larry Show. Every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Dr. Larry is a former businessman, entrepreneur, college president, and author who provides background and context for current events and trends in politics, education, foreign policy, and religion from a conservative perspective. Tune in and hear the other side as Dr. Larry talks with Washington insiders exclusively on blogtalkradio.com and the podcast at thebachelorpadnetwork.com.
Okay, yeah, that was, again, Dr. Larry will be following our show. So stay tuned, don't hang up. Just keep listening, and Dr. Larry will be following us with some of his unique guests and his unique perspective. And to that person who had a 646 area code.
Oh, someone wanted to talk to me about 90 Day Fiancé. I'm so excited.
No, the problem is they hung up before I could get to them.
No,
so I don't know.
Please call back.
Please call back. We'll get you on, okay? We're going to get you on.
I'm so happy. I'm not the only one who watches the show. I'm so happy right now.
And I've also put this on our Twitter site at the Donelson Files. So, the phone number information is all there.
Right.
So, yes, call. But here's the thing. Before we go into some of the things, the other things we kind of done, the prep here. Here's the other thing that comes into play that really strikes me as interesting is we live in a world of the social media, Facebook, Twitter. We have, various dating sites like Tinder. And God knows, God knows how many single sites that one could go into, eHarmony. They even got sites for if you're a liberal conservative. If you want Trump Trump voters, you could go to Trump, whatever. And if you want to vote, if you just simply want to date liberals, you can go to and here's the kicker of all this. I look
do you know how many dating sites I belong to? Do you know how many? I belong to about 80 dating sites. It's the saddest thing in the world. And there's so many you can choose from. I'm so glad you brought this up. There is a website. Okay, so my brother did this as a joke. He sent me a bunch of really weird, quirky dating sites. So there's 10 of them that I checked out, and they're all horrendous. There's one called uglypeople.com. And so it's if you think you're ugly or whatever, there's a person out there for you. There's clown dating for if you have a fetish about clowns, you meet up there. There's even one for people in the afterlife, and this is the one he sent me because as I get older, and so he sent me this one website, and it's literally hooking up with people that you think are ghosts. It's a joke website. It's like a farce.
Yeah.
But it was the funniest thing I ever have seen. And there's so many dating sites for whatever you're into, Farmers Only. I actually joined Farmers Only as a joke, and they're cowboys. There's seacaptain.com, or if you're into boats or there's a dating site for everything, literally. And I belong to all of them.
Well, here's the thing. But here's the point I'm going to make here: is we've become a society where literally, you're going to meet more people online. You're going to probably meet at the local, face to face. And even whether it's business, whether it is dating, or let's face it, you and me, we FaceTime each other for meetings. So that's, and I find it fascinating in the sense that this is the new world in which the old days you would go, somebody would ask you out, maybe you go to a bar, or you go to the local church to meet somebody, or there'll be places like. Well, actually, churches do have. Yeah. Now, here's the thing: a lot of churches will have singles. That literally will have places for singles where they can meet, where you get but my point is, there are places today. It's you go on Tinder. You go. If you want to look for a certain adventure, you go Tinder. If you want to go look eHarmony is another total thing. And we live in a society.
eHarmony is such a ripoff. You know how much it costs? It's $80 a month. I'm not exaggerating. It's around $80 if you get their deal package, and it sucks. All the men are complete crap. It's that's why I feel and it's really funny because I'll look on different websites, and they're the same people from other websites that are on eHarmony. It's really? No, eHarmony's a joke. So is Match. Match.com is worse. Don't join Match.
Yeah. Well, my point is that we are living in a society where a lot of our meeting spaces are online. They're not face to face.
Oh yeah. I didn't remember not dating anybody that was not online.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a totally different situation today. And you talk about this. What's the show again?
90 Day Fiancé.
90 Day Fiancé.
90 Day Fiancé. The reason why it's called 90 days is because when they come to America, they have 90 days to get married, or they have to go back to their country. It's a 90-day visa. That's why it's called 90 days. So there you know. It's just so sad. I just look at these women, and I live my life most of the time, and I'm thinking to myself, my God, I'm 31, I'm single, I have a dog, but at least I'm not like throwing like $10,000 just so someone could like me. My God, that's pathetic. I'm sorry, but you know what? I would never bring over some guy, from like, and most of them have felonies too on the show. Like a lot of them have like, the one guy that I was talking to you about, he was not allowed in South Korea or the U.S. because of his like criminal background.
Well, that's
seriously.
that's one.
So it's like really, and she's the one that keeps sending him like she doesn't work, by the way. This woman does not work. And so she's like, spending $6,000, taking from her parents' money and throwing it to him. And, when they meet up, like he cancels the ticket and cashes it out. Come on. And you're still convinced he loves you? I mean, you have a child. She has a 5-year-old child who she still has not enrolled in school, by the way, because she's busy traveling to Morocco to meet some guy who doesn't love her. I'm sorry, I have to yell because I'm getting it out of my chest. It infuriates me that some women are like this. Like, they're so desperate for love, they're willing to do anything, and it's just pathetic and sad. And they need to know they're worth more than, being scammed.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm just, like I said, I just find this whole thing fascinating in the sense of where our society is going.
It's a great show. It's a great show.
Yeah, it kind of reflects, but because like I say, these stories tells a little bit about our society and where it's evolving into, and this is a good example.
We're all pressured to like get married and have kids and all that stuff. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Part of that, but part of it is the fact that voyeurism. I mean, this is to me the other aspect of it's the voyeurism of the whole thing is that we're, like I say, it's just not watching a train wreck, but I'm sitting there thinking to myself, why would you want to have all of this as a matter of public record? Have the show follow you, be out there in this fashion.
To that,
there's an element. I have to say, to me,
Well, I'll tell you why. Because they get a percentage and they get sponsors. They'll get people who sponsor them to like put out their products. So they're making they could be making $1,000 a day just off by doing those products. That's why.
Yeah, hold on just a second. Do we have a caller on the line here?
Oh my God. Hello?
Yeah, looks like we got somebody. Hello? All right, well.
Come on, talk to me about 90 Day.
Yeah.
So obsessed with that show. It's
well,
so
like
sad.
I said,
well, thank you for calling, and hopefully you watch that show and, know what I'm talking about so I don't sound like a completely crazy person right now. But, I just had to get that off my chest because I just spent 48 hours consecutively, just watching that show. And I was like, oh, my God, I cannot be the only person that thinks this is, insane for someone to do. Look, I have a friend who recently got married. Yeah, she got married for the green card. But, if you see them together, they love each other. And they dated about 2 years before getting married. She's very young. She's, 23. And, there are people I know that do that, but they're not going to – they don't advertise it, and they don't go on national TV saying it to look like an idiot. I think it's a very private matter.
Yeah. Well.
So, that's all I have to say about the show.
Yeah. No, I say it's like I said, this whole thing just. Like I say, I'm just amazed at all of the voyeurism and where this whole thing has taken us. Because I guess there's a period of time where, like I say, Americans would not be that interested in something like this and watching a train like this. There would be an element of pity.
Right.
Today, it's like there's no pity.
Oh, it's hilarious. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
We have watch parties. I have watch parties for the show. I'll invite people over break out the wine, cook some food, and we just like watch how ridiculous the people are. It's like the saddest thing.
Yeah. So, well, okay, now, basically what I was going to do, there were certain news stories, and like I say, I was going to, and we're going to get to these stories because there are stories out there that struck my eye, and there's three I'm going to start with. One's the Wall Street Journal. And it talks about, okay, royal welcome to Trump and turns to thorny trade issues. Okay. The essence of the story is that Trump is basically telling the British, when you leave, get it completed, we're going to do a trade deal with you, and you can be part of our trade network. Now, for people, let's understand here. Let me put it in this way. I wrote a book called Rise of National Populism and Democratic Socialism. It's available Post Hill Press, and one of the things I talked about starting, I said, what we're going to end up seeing from this administration and into the future is what I call the development of the Anglosphere, where I basically said that Brexit would lead to the British coming part of our trading alliance as opposed to be part of the EU, that this was going to be an aspect of the foreign policy, that we will be seeing this kind of a movement afoot. And this was that first step to that movement. And I described the Anglosphere basically as an alliance of the English-speaking nations, and I do include India as an eventual part of that alliance, both from defensive purposes and trade purposes. And this just simply, what we're seeing in Britain is essentially what I talked about in my book. In other words, I'm on the cutting edge when I talked about this, and I've been talking about this for a decade, and others writers have been dealing with this issue as well. And it kind of looks like, okay, here's a path that 2 years ago I discussed. I've discussed it on my show. I discussed it on the Dr. Larry show. And we're actually seeing this coming possibly to pass, namely a special or even a closer alliance. And it also kind of talks about, I also discussed the EU. And there's a couple articles I will bring to that in a second here. So, I just thought, again, it's like I say, we've been on the show, we've been on the cutting edge on a lot of issues. You, for example, when it came down to figure out which Trump, is going to be leaving and when, you basically called the diamond date. I'm thinking John Kelly and James Mattis as two examples.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And this is an example where, okay, very few shows, you're going to hear this. Very few shows have discussed any of this. You would be hard-pressed to see much of this in the media, including conservative media, or let's say any media, and what the implication is. But, this is something that I thought could come to pass, that Brexit offered that opportunity to make some changes in what we would look at the world alliance today. Now, the second story goes along with this because here's the thing, and it's a two-part story, and it's something now I stated, again, in my book. One of the points that I made is that I stated that to me, the EU, there was aspects of the EU that basically you had leaders within Europe who viewed the EU not so much as, let's say, a continuation of what we've seen in the past 70 years of the alliance of the United States and Europe, but basically taking Europe on a totally independent route of China, Russia, and the United States. And there was an article by Victor Davis Hanson that he wrote recently in National Review where he talked about this, where he basically talked about how Merkel is basically saying, in effect, and so did the French President Macron, the EU needs to be an independent of everybody. In other words, the very aspect that people complain about Trump breaking up Europe, it's been part of the EU. That within the EU, you've had a group of people who wanted to turn Europe into a super state, independent of everybody else. And I mentioned that the problems with that as well, but it's a great article to look at because the second part of that story, and this is the one that really struck me, was and let me get the cover to this story because again it kind of talks about in a way where Europe is going, and what again a good portion of our media has missed about this new Europe. This is from the BBC. German Jews urge not to wear, you're going to have to correct me on this, kippas, the little hats, after there were a series of attacks on Jews. They're in effect told, keep your Jewishness a secret if you want to survive, if you want to be protected. And I'm looking at this here. I mean, I'm looking. The two things pop in mind was you got a German saying it's time for us to take control of our own destiny, and I'm thinking to myself, the last time the Germans have done that twice in the past century, and look how it turned out. And then you have this story added to all of that, and it's like we're seeing a totally different Europe than what we saw 10, 15, 20 years ago. I don't know, your thoughts.
Right. I mean, I'm so sick of like what's going on right now politically in the world right now. Yeah. I mean, I think we're so backwards that I don't feel like we're moving forward with anything, and that's like Republicans, that's Democrats, that's pretty much where I'm at this point, because it just feels like there's so much fighting, like even more so than ever, and it's almost gotten to the point where I'm sick of all parties, more so the Republicans, I would say, but it's like, it's almost like impossible to move forward with any type of, plan, really, And I think I also think it's the fact that, we as a society, kind of need to come together, and the Democrats need to figure out their ideal candidate. I'm going with Joe Biden, and I don't care what anybody says. Like, that's who I'm voting for. And I've had people in the Democratic Party, like, call me a traitor. I've had people in the Republican Party, like, say, like, I'm a commie. And it's like, you got to think for yourself. You got to, whoever you're comfortable as their candidate, you go ahead and vote for them. It's your vote. That's why we are so far right now in a free society where we can vote, we can talk, we can, come together, we can protest, we can do whatever. But my worry is, I don't know if you heard about this in Australia, where a reporter, I don't know the whole story, so I'll probably get a lot of it wrong, but basically the government intruded into this guy's home and basically arrested him for reporting on the government in Australia. I don't want our society to be like that. I want us to be a free society, an equal society. I want equality for all. I want rights for all. I'm very passionate about gay rights, and I'm very passionate about women's issues. So those are my main focuses, and whoever I feel is the best candidate for that, that's who's going to get my vote.
Yeah. All right. Like I said, we're going to hold on to that thought right here because I've got the story, and
you got the Australian
we'll
one?
get into the Australian story in front of me, and we'll get into the details here real quickly. This is Tom Donelson, Donelson Files with Coco Konski on the Bachelor Pad Radio Network. You can also listen to our show on the bachelorpadnetwork.com. So after the show's over, you can go back because you're so impressed with us that you're going to want to listen to it a second time. And then you're going to turn around and want to re-listen to the Dr. Larry Show. So all of that, plus we do have a website, DonelsonTFiles.com, and on Twitter at the DonelsonFiles.com.
Hey, this is L.A. Bachelor reminding you if you're looking for real discussion on sports, politics, religion, and other topics, you need to join us on Mondays at 6 p.m. Eastern at WCOMFM.org, on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. at blogtalkradio.com/LA-Bachelor, and on Thursdays at the same web address. Follow us on Facebook at Pad Nation, on Twitter, Pad Nation, the number 2 at Twitter, LinkedIn, and you can email us with your requests, your comments, your concerns, anything you want at our email address at LABachelor with a T, BATCHELOR 40 at gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook and Pad Nation, Instagram, and of course, if you missed any part of our broadcast, make sure you go to thebachelorpadnetwork.com and listen and enjoy the Bachelor Pad.
I thought the Bachelor Pad follows our show on Tuesday. You can see it and listen to it Thursday. And if you miss any episodes of any of our programs on the Bachelor Pad Radio Network, thebachelorpad.com, you can go back and listen to a replay of a show that you may have missed or you want to listen to a second time. So this is all part of the Bachelor Pad Radio Network. Okay, I'm going to read the story real quick here, and because I think I got the thrust over, but I don't have chance to read it all, but here's a thrust. Okay, the Australian Federal Police executed a search warrant of an investigation of leaking of classified information. Okay, the reporter is the national political editor of the Telegraph, the Sunday Telegraph, and News Corporation. Title translation: she's part of the Murdoch, and he'll have his own comments later. Mm-hmm. And basically, they reported that they were discussing a proposal to grant new powers to a cyber intelligence agency within the Australian government. And she wrote that email. She, in effect, was detailing a plan. It sounds like a plan that they had to expand, spy or whatever word you want to use. And so obviously, she got this information leaked to her. And it goes, interesting thing. Okay, here's the thing. We've talked about this on our show with you, with Lauren Bice and others. Because essentially, what we're seeing here, if I understand it correctly, was how this information. That there was government secrets in which she was leaked and she wrote about. And they're putting her on that same line of spy. They basically are going after her to get to the sources. And but you're absolutely correct, because we have seen the same thing here in the U.S. And the question that comes into play is that, and this is a point I've made, you've made, this is one of the few areas you and I have definitely agreed with, is that, we're at a point of civil liberties under siege and under threats. There's an example in Australia, and certainly the Julian Assange case, which again I've stayed on the show. I've had mixed emotions about Assange as a person, because I think the guy, there's a part of me that says the guy's scum. He's not exactly leaking stuff. I would not be surprised, and is that enough evidence to suggest that he's worked with foreign governments and took their leaks and published it out. And so, but the question comes into play, and it goes back to what is journalism today. Is it any different than when the New York Times has in the past passed on information that was granted to them, leaking information, federal secrets, and in some cases, as I stated, in the case of the information about the Democratic Party that he leaked in June of 2016. Well, this was information that, quite frankly, the voters should have been aware of. Not the least of which that Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party were out basically making skewering the election away from doing whatever they could to secure election away from Bernie Sanders in the primary. And, in other words, this is not information that I would sit back and say, this was information that, should have been out there, and information which a good reporter would have found had they chose to go in that direction. And that's why I'm looking at this story as well. It's that fine line between secrets, but the question is, what kind of government secrets are you doing? Are you saying, in effect, you're disclosing that the government in Australia is going to seek new ways to spy on people, that the people shouldn't know that? Your thoughts?
Right. I read the article. Am I correct? Did you glance through the article for Australia?
Yeah, I got the BBC version.
So okay, yeah, that's where that's actually where I found it earlier today. I mean, and that's really scary if you think about it. Journalists are being locked up for exposing their own government, and I don't want that to happen in America. I think that's the scariest thing ever. I mean, there's a thing called general integrity, and they take the oath, and they don't have to reveal their source. And many journalists literally go to jail for that because they'd rather not give up their source than, do that and, expose who they've been talking to, because then their lives are in danger as well. And that's something that, we know about, but we don't really talk about it. You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah. Well, here's the thing. Yeah, here's the key, because this is, again, I'm going to go back because, my rant, I was going to start with the media. One of the areas where I have been totally irritated. Look, I'm going to put this. I've dealt with the media over a 40-year period. As a political operative, I've been I've worked as a column. I've done some columns for major newspapers in the Midwest. I've written for, let's say, political magazines like in Kansas City, the Casey Jones. And as a political operative, I've had to deal with the media. So I have a pretty darn good idea what goes down and here's the rant I was got, because here's the issue. We go into the Mueller report and what's happened the last 3 years. Whether you like Trump or not is immaterial. But what you better be concerned about, and I said this for 2 years, and so far I have been proven to be correct on what I'm about to say. I stated 2 years ago, the issue is not going to be collusion because they won't find it. What they will find is that our government used questionable, if not fake, data to get warrants to spy on Americans. In this case, a political campaign. And I said, if you let them get away with that they will do it again and again and again. And that the idea that if you're not willing to protect civil liberties regardless, you're going to find yourself the victim eventually when somebody else does it to you. And this is and this is where we're at with the media, because I guarantee you, 95% of the media today, they're not even looking still in this direction. They're looking totally the complete opposite where they should be looking. And this is part of it, because the other aspect, and I don't know if you remember the Internal Revenue scandal, where basically the IRS went after and targeted conservative groups in 2012 to 13. With something, by the way, it came out, it was admitted, and nobody, and I mean nobody, had ever they lose their job, went to jail, or anything. It's like you sit there and you say to yourself, people's civil liberty, the Internal was used as an enemy. I mean, I could go back on the Nixon years where Nixon attempted that and failed because you had people in his own party or his people that he appointed say, hey, we're not going to do that, Richard. We're not going to do that, Mr. President. That's illegal. Not only did they get away with it, and this is to me where where the media has failed its own basic duties. In some ways, there are people within our media and I'll be happy to name names, who are basically complicit in not reporting this because, quite frankly, the guy they don't like is the one getting screwed without realizing, hey, dude, what happens when it gets used against you? I'm going to let you think on that, then we're going to... This is
right. I mean...
Yeah, hold on to your thought because we're going to come right back here with another great shows on the Bachelor Pad Radio Network. Tom Donelson, Coco Konski, with a part of the Bachelor Pad Radio Network.
Hello, this is Sandy Eason, the host of Sandy's Secrets. Come and join us, where we will be talking about women's issues of sexuality, sensuality, and self-love. We'll be coming soon, exclusively on the Bachelor Pad Radio Network.
Sandy Eason, yes, she'll be coming soon. As soon as we find out more information, tell you we're going to be promoting. It sounds like it's going to be a great program. She's been on our program, and I know you, Coco, have talked with her as well off the air. So you.
Yep.
So, I mean, you're going to test. It's going to be, like I say, it's going to be kind of fascinating. But okay, your thoughts on that? Yeah.
Right. I mean, like I said, I think it's very dangerous when are being put away, they're being censored. I think it's absolutely dangerous. I think it's even more ridiculous that, they have the government come into their house. And let's be realistic, that does happen. We hear about it, but we don't actually really talk about it. And I think it's a really important issue to talk about is, the censorship when it comes to government. Like, my stance on the whole Alex Jones and how I think he definitely deserved to lose his platform for that because I think he's very dangerous. But you're having like actual journalists, their homes being invaded, their property being destroyed, and then themselves being threatened with jail time. Like I think that's absolutely ridiculous. And it comes to the question: how much is too much government?
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this question.
We need a government, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me ask you this question. Here's the question I'm going to ask you: is this? Because here's the problem I've seen over the past 3 years. And I'm going to say very clearly, dealing with the Russian collusion case or the Mueller investigation, the whole work, much of the mainstream media got the story totally wrong. I mean, they were 180 degrees off to this state. I mean, they basically, and to this point, here's where we're at. Now you got William Barr basically now looking at, did our FBI violate the law? And it's violate the law in getting warrants. Did they have a reason to get the warrants, or did they violate the laws? Did they entrap people? Did they do things illegally? Did they lie to the courts to get warrants? And to me, I want to see the media say, let's look into this. And what do you say to those media people? Say, do you not think this is worth looking into? Or is it just, worth looking into? Because I'm not seeing it on most of these networks at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the question to me is, if you're not willing to look into this, you're the next victim of all of this. That's my view, and you're right in the sense we're not. And the other aspect is, how do you define journalism? And this is, to me, another very tricky point, because I'm going to say I don't have it. Like I say, I've written thousands of articles, mostly as pundits, but I've written thousands of articles in my life for various publications. And I didn't go to school journalism, but I can tell you what Howard K. Smith, the late ABC of the 1960s and 70s reporter once said. He said, he basically said, in school, he actually said, school journalism is a waste of time. You want to know? If the guy can write, give me 3 months, and I'll tell him everything he needs to know about journalism. And this comes into play because you got people out there who are basically independent of what we call mainstream journalism who are doing good jobs. When I look at, let's say, the past 3 years dealing with the Vice Courts abuses, John Solomon of the Hill, has pretty much been on top. Judicial Watch has literally gotten information from the Freedom of Information Act that, is kind of, you look at and think, oh my God, is this could happen? And again, I hate the WikiLeaks. I mean, like I said, I have no love for WikiLeaks. I know there are a lot of people who view him as basically who should be prosecuted for classified documents. But my question is, what is journal? Because obviously the things that he released were things that government wanted to keep from us to begin with, not the least of which. And the question is that fine line? Is he a journalist? By every practice, has he done anything different than what the New York Times has done in the past? Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I pretty much said what I thought on the issue. I think it's, very dangerous when,
yeah.
governments control you 24/7. I look at China. Look anywhere else. It's not the U.S. at this moment. I mean, that stuff is really dangerous.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing about China too. And like I say, can it happen here? And we talked about it. Here's a story that thought to be 2 days ago. This was 2 days ago. Twitter, before the 30th anniversary of the Tiananmen Square, Twitter took down sites of Chinese dissidents. They all but cooperated with the Chinese government, so we're going to take these sites down. So there'll be no negativity on Twitter about Tiananmen Square. And that's what scares me, is when you start seeing American companies do this, you got to be asking yourself, when did they, are they going to, how far are we from being like China? When you got American companies all by saying,
I think we're pretty far off. I don't think we're anywhere close to that.
Yeah, we may not be, but here's the point I'm going to say. If we don't think about it, if we allow certain things to happen, it's that, the road to perdition. It's that road to hell. In other words, it starts with steps here, step here, and next thing you know, you're like halfway there, and you're like, how did we get here? And this to me is when I see an American company saying, we'll do with the Chinese work, I'm saying it won't be that long before if the United States government says, hey, I want you to take Tom Donelson and Coco Konski off your sites or wherever they are, you got to get rid of them. Would they be willing to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we can't take for granted that this is going to keep. We cannot take for granted that the liberties we enjoy are going to stay if we're not vigilant, whether you're right, left, or in between. You can't be, you cannot take for granted our freedoms. That's my view. And now I'm going to get a story here that I would love your opinion on. Kat Kemp is a libertarian who writes for National Review. And it appears that a 16-year-old girl sent some, dirty pictures, whatever. She did what teenagers sometimes do with their cell phones. And to a couple of her friends. Well, and I guess she's now facing charges of child pornography.
Mm. Well, okay.
And I'm thinking,
say that again?
Okay, you got a 16-year-old girl. Yeah. Now, Kat Tim was telling wrote a story about a 16-year-old girl who's facing child porn charges because she, basically showed off. I guess, you know what I'm talking about. She's sexting, right? She's sexting to some of her friends.
I have my thoughts on that. I think that's completely insane. I feel like if you're over 16 and you're doing that willingly, like with the same person your same age, listen, I did that when I was like 16. My God, I'm not saying that's what normal people do, but there are some people who do that. And I was one of those people, and it scares me to think nowadays that we consider child porn. Like you guys all know, I'm a huge support of like anti-human trafficking. Like that's one of the companies that I work with. We deal with that. But I think, you know, a girl doing that, you know, 16 years old, which by the way, 16 is sometimes in some certain areas and states and overseas, that's legal.
Yeah.
That's a legal age of consent. But I think that's like a bit, it's like a stretch. It's like, to me, I feel like if a man who's like 18 and his girlfriend's 17, they have sex, and then that girl's parents, you know, call the police, blah, 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 and now he's registered as a sex offender. I think that's absolutely ridiculous because there's actual sex offenders who rape kids, who just rape children, and those are the ones I think should be listed as a sex offender. But if you're 18 and your girlfriend's 17 and you guys have consensual sex, you know, I don't absolutely think you should be registered. I think that is horrible. I don't think that's right.
Well, exactly. Because this is the case. Because here's the case. Basically, she made a video performing a consensual sex act and sent it to a couple of her close friends. So I'm going to assume everybody in this thing is considered a minor. All right, that's basically what you're looking at.
All right.
Everybody's a minor. Yeah, and I'm thinking to myself, you know, I'm with her and I'm with you. I mean, there are things I would do as a parent, and maybe the school can do in discipline, but sending.
Yeah, but like, how are you going to control that? You can't control a teenager like that. Like, I was like that. I'm telling you, I was crazy and wild and really fun, but you can't. If she wants to do it, they're going to go ahead and do that.
Well, they may do that, but I mean, I guess my point would be is let the parents make that decision on how they deal with it.
Well, it's embarrassing. That's what it is. It's an embarrassing thing to deal with and to have. You know, it's embarrassing.
It has been,
but
but here's the thing: they're charging her with child pornography.
Yeah,
this could send her to jail.
I know.
For years. Not
just that. I mean, yeah, the jail part's awful, but like, think of it. When she gets out, like, she's not going to have any place to work.
Yeah.
Because they're going to see the first thing is sex offender.
Yeah, and this is this is the point. I mean, this is the whole thing. Here is like I'm sitting there, you know, reading this stuff, and I'm asking my question. Is I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. She's 16 years old. She probably had sex with her boyfriend. She sends to her 15 and 16-year-old friends. Okay, it's embarrassing. You don't want to, you know, but do you go knock on somebody's door and say, okay, we're going to arrest you for child pornography? It doesn't make sense.
To me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's insane.
That's insanity.
Yeah, it is insane, and this is exactly, you know, again, it goes back to some of the stories we talk. I mean, sometimes we talk about certain stories, and we get ourselves, you know, it sounds humorous and funny and all that, but sometimes some of these weird stories, they're telling a story about what's going on in modern day America.
Right.
And
I mean, listen, human trafficking is a real thing, you know, and I've always been I'm a very prominent supporter of sex workers and their rights, you know, to do what they want legally, and I think prostitution should absolutely be legal. You know, I think, you know, what happens between two consensual of-age adults, you know, whether it's for money or whatever, like, you know, go ahead and do that. You know, I have no problem with that whatsoever. And I think, you know, the fact that this girl, I mean, yes, she is 16. That is underage. In California, that you have to be 18 and over. But I feel like, like, really? Like, child porn? That's a bit of a stretch.
That's why it's stretch, but it gets to a point where, you know, in our society, you know, where we're headed. And I'm like at a point where, okay, you know, sexting may be embarrassing. It shouldn't be a crime. You know, you figure out a way to deal with it, but it's not a crime. Okay? There are ways you could deal with it in a private setting. It's not a crime. And if we make it into...
I'd be in jail already, Tom. I'd be in jail since I was like 16.
Yeah,
I mean, you remember, you obviously don't remember this, but, like, when I was a kid, like, I used to go in chat rooms and, like, flirt or whatever, or, like, sex. I was, like, 13, and I pretended I was, like, 18. It was, like, awful. But, like, if you talk to any millennial, they did the same thing. I mean, I obviously never showed any nude pictures of me, but, you know, the whole sexy thing, oh, my God. That was a thing we all did just for fun. It wasn't like, you know, well, I'm so old, they actually call it cybering.
Yeah, that's
but
right. You're
now
so
it's just the
old.
norm. I'm very old.
So
I will be 32 in March, FYI. So I am old.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, well, I wish I was still that old. Yeah, but there are times in which
I'm not as old as the men I date, so that's a good sign. But
yeah.
you know, I mean, this was like a norm for us. Like when we would go out at weekends, we would just like screw around on AOL chat rooms.
Yeah.
I mean, if you guys remember what Hometown AOL was, I had one. And we used to troll for, like, guys over there. And it was what we did. It was fun. I don't do that anymore. So I'm not 16.
Well, no, but then again, you do have 80 dating sites. But you do have 80 dating sites. I got to ask you.
I'm not even exaggerating. I have a separate email for all the dating sites I belong to. I have, like, a separate email for that.
Let me ask you a question. Do you ever get to a point where you say to yourself,
why are you so pathetic, Coco? Yes. No, so I used to belong to Match. I was on eHarmony, which sucks, so I got rid of those. I was on JDate. I was on Tinder. I was on Meet Me. I was on a lot of stuff. And, like, it was ridiculous, like, how much I was paying a month. Like, I think I paid Match was, like, $40 a month, and then, like, eHarmony was, like, $85 a month. Because, like, I wanted to meet people, you know, and I don't, you know, I'm not a shy person at all. I can go out and meet someone, but I like to know who that person is before I actually meet up with them. And so that's why I chose to go on these dating sites. But, you know, anytime I met up with someone, they were, like, an even bigger freak than ever. So I was like, you know what, I'll just try and meet people the old-fashioned way at a bar.
Yeah.
But obviously that worked out perfectly for me. So, you know.
Well, like I say, I mean, it's not. I guess, like I say, I've been, you know, out of the dating for so long, I would not even know where to start. But I do know that there are actually dating sites for people my age. You know,
I joined those. Our time.
Yeah, I am also amazed how many sites, you know, every so often some of these cable shows, you know, depending on, you know, you'll be like listening and be like, what? What are you selling?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh, God. So and there's dating sites for that as well. So,
yeah.
You know.
So.
You do you. You do you.
Mm-hmm. So, well, I tell you what, like I said, let's kind of summarize it. I mean, this is one of those shows where tonight, you know, we were looking at different, because they talk about issues. So I'm just going to summarize very simply. We began the show, well, with 90 Day Fiancé, and nobody's called. Let me check.
I'm very upset
Twitter
at everyone
site.
right now.
I'm going to check Twitter to see if anybody actually even commented, like, are you nuts? And the answer is no, but I did get a notification for Laura Donna about one of her art pieces. So that's
nice.
But not that. Okay. Well, here's the thing. I mean, I'm going to begin. You know, we're going to kind of wrap this thing up because we've got 2 minutes left, and Dr. Larry is waiting with a bated breath to get his show started. And I know he's all excited about doing that. So we got about 2 minutes to do that. But see, here's the thing. So I'm going to summarize. I'm going to say this. At the beginning, we made 2 points, 90 Day Fiancé. But we also talked about, and I want people to look at the National Review article by Victor David Hansen on Angela Merkel's Germany. It's a fascinating piece. Combine that with the BBC story dealing with, you know, Jews having to basically hide who they are, to keep from getting assaulted and being told by the government, don't act Jewish in public. Is essentially what they're saying, whatever that means. and the fact that, the Brexit may lead to a totally different world than what we live in. And for those, you can get those on the doc, and you can get that information from a book, The Rise of National Populism and Democratic Socialism, that I wrote, released in December 2019. And a lot of these things I discussed, they're happening. Let's just say I'm on the cutting edge. Coco and I are on the cutting edge of societal evolution. This is Tom Donelson. Coco, I'll let you say goodnight, and we'll turn it on to the Dr. Larry. All right, Dr. Larry, wherever you are on the Bachelor Party Radio Network.
When you hear that trumpet, you know it's the Dr. Larry Show on the Bachelor Pad Radio Network. And tonight we're talking about the moral case for profit sharing as at least our lead topic. We want to get into some of the other characteristics of that or aspects of that field later on, but last week we discussed the antecedents of the current movement toward corporate social responsibility and the conscious capitalist movement, and also the paradigm on which the moral claim can be made for a redefinition of workers' rights with respect to workers' share of the company's profits. The paradigm is the company's products and services offerings. The moral claim is the right of every person or legal entity to be compensated in proportion to how much that person's effort contributed to the profit or loss from the company's total activities. A simplistic example would be a company profit of $1,000 divided equally by 100 people or entities, such as investors and banks, who contributed to the sale of the product. And each share would then be $10. Obviously, no product line or service is, in fact, the result of equal contributions by all the people who have been involved in the offering. Such an assignment of the many varied values which produce the products amounts to a quantification of each party's input to the profit or loss experienced by the entire enterprise. Not only are many qualities difficult to quantify, such as risk and perseverance, but some, such as loyalty and teamwork, would seem to have no metric at all. Some are unique, such as creativity. Others, such as availability and skills, are competitive and subject to supply and demand. The decisions made by some are critical to both survival and success, while others are routine and conventional. Nevertheless, if profit sharing is to become the basis for a new interpretation of workers' rights, some intelligible and mutually agreeable formulas must be used. But rather than attempt a summary and rationalization of the many different formulas which have been used and thought about by firms during the robust history of profit sharing, it seems equally necessary to examine the ethical basis which underlies the need to engage in this practice in the first place. Economists link the creation of wealth since the Industrial Revolution to increases in productivity, that is, the multiplication of output per unit of effort. The most often used unit of effort is the human labor hour. Since the common characteristic of most technological innovations is the reduction of the human labor hour required to complete the task, productivity is closely connected to technology. And in the modern era, technology, in turn, is more and more closely connected to the sciences. Whereas earlier productivity was usually associated with individual capabilities, such as foot speed and native intelligence or instinct, as in logging, fishing, plowing, and many other trades. Technology-based productivity is based on devices which themselves already incorporate such physical or skill-based characteristics. The speed of a car, for example, is faster than any human being can run, and so on. This approach thus introduces a far more complex process to the production of any saleable outcome, including services. Thus, there is an entire process of innovation which precedes what we think of as human labor, a process which involves risk, originality, perseverance, promulgation, and eventually marketing and sales. It is only after all this that the new products are placed into a traditional business setting for design, fabrication, marketing, sales, repair, and warranty services. What has happened in our current business practice is that more and more of the rewards of the enormous gains in productivity which have dominated our civilization in the post-World War II era have gone to the inventors and owners of new technologies, and less to the average workers. Yet no one disputes the fact that without the workers, the actual implementation of these technologies would never have happened. Because there are more of these folks, and because the skills needed to perform in a high-tech world are more available among the masses of workers, their contributions today are typically rewarded at roughly the same level as the loggers and farmers of an earlier era. But why are they not entitled to a greater share of the gains which these increases of productivity have brought to life in the public square? After all, without them, these innovations would still be unknown, condemned to eternal obscurity. By what right do the owners or the investors get to determine that they are entitled to 80% of the firm's assets, while the workers, whose role is also critically important to the success or failure of the enterprise, collectively receive 20% or less? These are human beings, not robots, not slaves, not units to be discarded or exploited. The old survival of the fittest logic does not belong, is not expected, and will not be tolerated in today's capitalism. Each company, each organization, each business is based on a culture akin more to the family or a tribe than to the 20th century factory. After all, we spend more time at home, at play, at work, than we do at home, at play, or in social activities. Most of our lives, more of our lives, we spend with fellow workers than even with our families. Success in the business world of this new century demands the pride of accomplishment, respect for the dignity of work, and a company culture which strives to promote the human goals of joy and even love of one's fellows. These are the coming, growing companies, the ones which will survive and thrive in the dawning of the new day. In addition, because of the way our economy is organized, American business as a whole is bound to rise or fall on the basis of the working class's ability to participate comfortably in our ever-growing consumer economy. It is thus in everyone's interest to amend our definition of workers' rights to include a new condition, the right to calibrate employee compensation to the success or failure of the total enterprise in terms not only of satisfaction and failure, but also of profit or loss. Remember, in the new capitalism, everyone who receives a wage, whether leaders, the new term for managers, or team members, is a worker. The old terms do not fit this new business model. Another unspoken result of this practice is the fulfillment of the American president's plea to buy American. If American workers have the means to continue their traditional support of our consumer economy, the value of tariff wars and the harm from trade deficits will gradually fade away as we become again self-sufficient. Let the rest of the world look on in envy, and let Karl Marx turn over in his grave as his workers' paradise comes to life in the very system he so thoroughly condemned. You're listening to the Dr. Larry Show on the Bachelor Pad Radio Network.
Dermarest, the psoriasis solution, asks,
what's complete freedom? For me, it's an open road with the top down. It's my bare arms getting warmed by the sun. It's my bare arms without a trace of psoriasis.
Complete freedom, brought to you by the complete relief of Dermarest psoriasis. Unlike brands which only relieve itching and inflammation, Dermarest psoriasis also removes the embarrassing scales, allowing healthy skin to grow.
Healthy skin? That's complete freedom.
Dermarest, the psoriasis solution.
Hardee's Happy Hour isn't your average happy hour. From 2 to 5 p.m., double sliders are only $1.25. Call it a charbroiled hour, a double beef hour, a whole lot of melty cheese hour. Call it what you want. Happy Hour at Hardee's is a good call. Offer for a limited time and only between 2 and 5 p.m. Price and participation may vary. Tax not included.
Come tap your feet and snap your fingers at the Homegrown Music Fest. All free at the North Carolina State Fair in Raleigh, October 11th through the 21st. 3 stages, 120 concerts. Details at ncstatefair.org.
Blog Talk Radio.
Having trouble with math or science homework? Call Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology's Homework Hotline, a free math and science tutoring service for Indiana students in grades 6 to 12. Call toll-free 1-877-ASK-ROSE from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, Sunday through Thursday. And a Rose-Hulman college student will help you with your math or science questions. The tutors are patient, smart, and pretty cool. Remember, it's a free service and a free call. That's 1-877-ASK-ROSE or visit askrose.org.
You're listening to the Dr. Larry Show on the Bachelor Pad Radio Network. And we now have, I'd like to welcome a couple of our guests who are definitely people of strong opinions, and I'd like to get their reactions to my opening statement. The first is Dr. Lee Bell, a fellow Michigander from Flint, Michigan, and L.A. Bachelor, who is the eminent owner of the whole network. Welcome, gentlemen. So we do not have our guests, and I guess that means that we will have to. That this is the Dr. Larry Show on the Bachelor Pad Radio Network, and
welcome to Total Wine and More. It's much more than a wine store. It's the 8th wonder of the world.
When people talk about Total Wine and More, they get a little carried away. We're just a big, friendly place run by people with a passion for wine, beer, and spirits.
8,000 different wines, 2,500 different beers, 3,000 spirits, and friendly, helpful experts at every turn.
You know what? Maybe we are the 8th wonder of the world.
Shop in store or online at TotalWine.com.
Blog Talk Radio.
Have you seen that new plastic coffee container? Did you know it actually absorbs aroma from the coffee? At Maxwell House, we think the aroma should stay where it belongs, in the coffee, not the container. Our steel can won't absorb our rich coffee aroma, and, unlike plastic, it's a perfect barrier against coffee's worst enemies, moisture and oxygen. So choose Maxwell House with the fresh steel can, and make every day good to the last drop.
It's the two megastars summer mashup, the awesome iPhone, on the Rockstar Metro PCS network. Get the iPhone you've always wanted for $0, so you can jam without limits.
It's a hit. Get an iPhone SE on us when you switch. Metro PCS. Coverage not available in some areas, plus sales tax and $10 activation fee. Requires port of number not currently active on T-Mobile network or on Metro PCS in past 90 days to an unlimited LTE plan. See store for details and terms and conditions.
Blog Talk Radio.
I'm not going very far.
It's too uncomfortable.
I'm in a hurry. Sometimes I just forget.
There's no such thing as a good excuse for not buckling up. You're not only putting yourself at risk of injury or death, it could also cost you lots of money. Cops are writing tickets, so why take the risk? Do the smart thing and start buckling up every trip, day or night. Click it or ticket. Paid for by NHTSA.
Napa know-how.
The Napa guy knows not to judge a man by his car's multicolored paint job or absence of modern gadgetry. Who cares if it's technically old enough to vote and the windows are powered by the strength of your left arm? Your monthly payment is $0, and it'll stay that way. Because with over 500,000 parts and a little Napa know-how, you can keep anything on the road. She may not be pretty, but she's all yours. That's Napa know-how.
Napa know-how.
This is Chicago-style hot dog here. I'm not feeling too good. Turns out, along with all the other bad things my cholesterol does, they say it's a risk factor for strokes. Strokes? Sheesh. Good news from National Stroke Association. Exercising, eating right, and asking your doctor about medicines that can help lower your cholesterol like statins may reduce the risk of a first stroke. And if you've already had a stroke, it's even more important you lower your cholesterol.
Lower your chances of stroke by controlling your cholesterol. Visit stroke.org today.
Taste and health. You want both in one cranberry juice? You want Northland.
Northland has a kick to it. I like that. It says 100% juice on their label. That tells me it's healthy.
Cranberry raspberry, cranberry grape. I love all their flavors.
Northland, a great taste and the health benefits of cranberry. Only Northland has 27% cranberry in all 9 of its 100% juice cranberry blends.
I choose Northland because it fits my healthy lifestyle.
Northland, 100% juice, 100% refreshing.
He says ready.
You're listening to the Dr. Larry Show on the Bachelor Pad Radio Network. And it seems like we need to perhaps talk a little bit about what is the practical importance of this sort of thing that we are talking about. We'll be talking to Dr. Lee Bell shortly, and in the meantime, we are going to try to get some clarification, or at least some analysis of what's going on relative to the importance of this topic. The people in general in the United States have been the middle class itself. Of course, that's kind of an amorphous term, but nevertheless, the majority of the working population of America have in fact not been participating in the terrific expansion of wealth, which in turn is caused by the productivity of the workforce that had been again engineered by the technology. This has gotten to be a really a strong case and a great objection on the part of many Americans, and this is also shaping up to become one of the significant issues of the coming presidential election. And we really have there are really only three ways to deal with it. The first is we don't do anything new. We simply expect the old trickle-down theory of economics to take care of eventually to take care of the equity problem, but that's never happened in the history of mankind. And second way is that we get the government involved, and through taxes they take a terrific burden on the wealthy people, and then also appoint them the redistributors of the wealth that the taxes get. And the problem with that is that the more the government gets involved in something, the more it tends to get screwed up. So then there should be a third way, and that should be a way that is shaped by the capitalist relatively free market that we have invented, and at least we have perfected to the extent that it is perfected. It's always in evolution, but this is the system that has given us in the United States the greatest prosperity in the history of the world. Unfortunately, the evolution of capitalism has not kept up with the evolution of technology and the evolution of workers' rights. So what my idea is that we look for a very strong resurgence of a whole new generation of capitalists, and these are these young managers who are currently organized, at least in one way, by this movement called conscious capitalism. And it's an amazing, for anybody that's looked at it, it's an amazingly stunning rethinking of the function of business, as all companies as being their primary purpose is to serve the community. However that be interpreted, it could be just your local community, like a drugstore, or it could be an international community, like a car company or a aerospace company, or it could be a something that is has a worldwide type of impact, like the sharing, for example, of the digital revolution that we are experiencing. So those are the three options, and of those, there's only two of them being talked about. And I'm very concerned that we not throw away our capitalist experience with the bathwater. So I'm interested in the opinions of other people on this, because I see it as a coming problem that is going to might end up getting resolved one way or the other in a very short term. So we're wondering if our guests have arrived yet. Dr. Bell or L.A. Bachelor, either one.
Dr. Bell here.
Oh, well, welcome. My goodness.
Thank you, Dr. Larry.
You're a fellow Michigander, right? You're from Grand Rapids or Flint?
Yes, Flint, Michigan.
Flint, Michigan.
And where are you from?
Lansing.
Okay.
I grew up in Lansing, and I had a lot of relatives that worked in the Flint General Motors factory and pumped gas in Owasso, and there's many of them are still up there.
How are they faring?
Well, they seem to be surviving pretty well, but they're I must admit that they're all pretty solid, or many of them are pretty solid in the Democratic role. So we have a lot to talk about.
Well, they're doing great.
So how about you? Did you get a chance to listen to my opening statement?
Not all of it. I heard you talk about our capitalist system. I caught some of that.
Well, what we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out just how in the world we distribute. I'm very concerned about the lack of equity in the distribution of wealth in the United States. I see it as both an economic catastrophe waiting to happen, and also as a moral problem that has really plagued us now for a whole generation. And I'm looking for some middle way to try to deal with it. And I think your background and your interests are among the people that have suffered the most from this kind of thing. Isn't that correct?
Yes, without a doubt.
So what is your have you I'm sure that you've thought about the answer to some of these problems. Have you heard anything about what the new capitalists are trying to do?
No. Is that the conscious capitalist?
Yes. Well, there are a number of aspects to it, I guess, but an earlier version that's better known is the corporate social responsibility. But I think that's just a waste. That's a gas station on the way to the real reform of capitalism.
Well, for me, capitalism works for those who have capital.
And
social
that should
capital,
be everybody.
Yes. I mean, well, it should be. I mean, we're talking social capital, financial capital, and political capital. And like you said, that should include everyone, but it does not.
So how can we fix that?
Well, one of the first steps, I would say, take the big money out of politics. One person, one vote. Let's do away with the gerrymandering that's going on all across this country. Have free and fair elections. Put people in power who will play fair and not use tactics that give one party or one class, financial class, an advantage over others. Let's make this as equal as we can. Let's equal the education systems, the justice systems.
So you feel that the answer is government, good government, better government, and that really is where our efforts ought to be focused.
Not necessarily. Spike Lee has a movie called "Do the Right Thing." You can't legislate morality. If people lived by the golden rule, in South Africa, when Nelson Mandela took office, the former president begged and pleaded with Nelson Mandela, please don't do to us what we did to you. That's pretty simple.
Yeah, well, I guess he tried hard enough. He had a big problem. But
I mean, why can't we distribute education dollars equally so that all school districts are equal?
So you believe that the government monopoly of education ought to be continued?
I did not mention anything about government being over education. It should be left up to the people, and the people should do the right thing.
Well, that I guess nobody argue with that.
So if we operate from that platform, why do we need the government to come in and regulate these institutions?
So what is the motivation then for people to be good?
For me, it's pretty simple. When everyone gets to participate in the process, you get the best of all worlds. When you deny a little black, brown, or poor white kid a chance to participate, you may be denying the world of the next person that will find a cure for cancer or some other dreaded disease. When we lock people out of the process, when we lock people out of the spoils, we're cutting ourselves short.
So how do we get from where we are to where we want to go?
Well, we have so many folks who are going to church who profess to be Christians. Let's start with really being Christians or whatever our religious faith is. Why don't we live by those tenets?
Well, I guess if that worked, we probably wouldn't be in the situation we're in, would we?
Okay, well, why doesn't it work?
Well, there's a lot of evil in the world. I mean, I guess a lot of us would like to be very virtuous, but well, unfortunately, a lot of us miss.
Well, am I thinking pie in the sky? I mean, is it too much to ask that we live by that golden rule? Because if we don't have government to police us, we police ourselves. And if we can't police ourselves, then I guess it's on government to do that.
Well, as you, I'm sure, are aware, it's there are ways to organize society in such that we have that the conflicting characteristics of various people and groups are offset or at least confronted by other groups or other people, which means we have conflict as opposed to peace and prosperity. Like for example, we have the constitutional system that we had in the United States. It was set up to have various power centers that were supposed to keep track of each other and keep other people from getting too that people were too they got too ambitious or too greedy or too rapacious or too violent, and there had to be other people to sort of confront them and offset that.
Would that be the same system that created and allowed slavery? Yeah,
I guess it was. And I think that's a good example of how evil, human beings can be very good, but they can also be very evil. And we have to account for the fact in whatever kind of organizational setting we do. That's why we have police and so on and so forth.
And the police a lot of times are used to enforce that unjust system of evil.
That's true, as are the courts.
Yes.
So that means that it seems to me that this sort of asking everybody to be good is probably not a very practical solution to the common getting the common good in any society. It seems like we have to have some discipline.
Okay, if we are not capable of quote unquote policing ourselves, what mechanism can we use to ensure or to at least work towards equity?
Well, are you talking about in terms of things like distribution of wealth, or are you talking about just personal behavior and personal equity between people?
Equity between people, distribution of wealth as well.
This is the we got to take a little step aside here for a second. This is the Dr. Larry Show on the Bachelor Pad Radio Network.
Hi, it's Jamie, Progressive's Employee of the Month, 2 months in a row. Leave a message at the... Hi, Jamie. It's me, Jamie. I just had a new idea for our song about the Name Your Price tool. So when it's like, tell us what you want to pay, hey, 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 and the trombone goes, blah, 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 and you say, we'll help you find coverage options to fit your budget. Then we just all do finger snaps while the choir goes, savings coming at ya, savings coming at ya. Yes? No? Maybe? Anyway, see your practice tonight. I got new lyrics for the rap break.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
It's the Dr. Larry Show on the Bachelor Pad Radio Network, and we're talking with Dr. Lee Bell, who is a motivational speaker and who's based in Flint, Michigan, which is very close to the area that I grew up in, and get back to every little while. I still have a sister there in Lansing, so. It seems I guess maybe my view of how we would try to effect the more equitable distribution of wealth has to do with recognizing that both capitalism needs to keep on evolving, and so does worker relations or worker rights. It seemed to me that they kind of got stuck in the 1970s, and that most of the things that the labor movement in the 1930s and between then and 1960s tried to achieve actually got more or less achieved in terms of a 40-hour work week and paid vacations, paid health care, and so on. But it seems like starting in the 1970s, late 70s, 1983 at least, the distribution of the results of our economy started moving away from the working class, and in fact ended up with the very rich owning approximately 80% of all the wealth in the United States, and the working class, the middle class people's wages and opportunities really were very, very circumspect. I should say circumscribed by the inability to have a equal share or a reasonable share of the wealth that was being produced, and there's really only three ways to solve that problem. One problem is to keep on trying to expect that the trickle down of theory of economy that we've been hearing about for so long is going to keep on working, which it never did in the first place. And secondly, we expect the government to come in and tax people to the very rich and take the money, and we then expect them to be the distributors of that additional wealth, which very frequently comes in the form of some kind of welfare. Or the third way would be that we reform the capitalist system that got us where we are now, and at least in terms of prosperity, and that we see a whole different approach to the purpose of business as being an institution or an organization to serve the community itself, and that the idea of profit is not the principal purpose of a business, as Milton Friedman was telling us. It, in fact, is a means to another end, and the end is the greater service that businesses will provide to the society as a whole, and that in turn is meant that the relations between workers and owners has to be reassessed and is in fact being rethought and reactivated actually in this conscious capitalism movement and other movements as well. That, it seems, is a much more humane way to try to deal with the two issues that are very important to the country as a whole. One is that the economy keep on moving forward, and that means technology and opportunities and so on. That those things, that those elements of society keep on progressing. And in order to do that, you have to have freedom, and you have to have people who are whose ideas are capable of that they're capable of talking about them and getting them funded and getting them into the society. And that the other side of it is that everybody who participates, including all the workers and the suppliers and the customers and the community and the environment, all of these factors have to be taken into consideration in assessing whether a company is truly successful or not. So that's kind of a very brief and not very detailed idea of what I'm trying to promote. I've talked to the organized labor about it, and we've got a fair amount of interest now in the AFL-CIO and trying to conceive of a relation with between workers and management that is collegial and cooperative instead of adversarial. And so we keep trying to promote the kind of world that you were advocating, but we're trying to see if there aren't some ways that we can do that that are also quite practical.
Well, Dr. Larry, as you were talking, my thoughts went to the organizing of the United Auto Workers, the UAW.
Right.
When GM recognized them as the bargaining unit for its workers, the benefits won over did not just benefit the workers themselves, it benefited our nation.
Yep, that's right.
With the advent of the 40-hour work week, you had individuals who got a chance to have vacations, time to spend with your family, institutions.
Child labor. They outlawed child labor.
Institutions such as our amusement parks sprang up and benefited. From that, we got the Disney Worlds, the Disneylands. So as you were talking, these sort of benefits from the UAW-GM bargaining came to mind. And when you talk about the conscious capitalism, it was skimpy on details, as you said, but it's something I'm willing to try because I see a bigger benefit to the community at large.
Well, I certainly hope we get the chance because I am quite, I've been involved in various ways with the organized labor for most of my life, but I also feel that they kind of fell down on the job when it in starting in the when they kind of stopped looking for the new way to do business and to support the workers somewhere there in the late 70s and early 80s, and that I think they need to get back to taking care of the workers. That's their job, and
I would agree.
And that right now we've got a whole generation of new managers. Well, they don't call them managers anymore; they call them leaders, who really want to have a cooperative and collegial relationship with their workers. For example, there are a number of banks. First of all, this conscious capitalism group is now 1,600 companies and 3 million workers, and that is that's a pretty significant, and they have some pretty large companies too, like Southwest Airlines and Federal Express and so on. And I think that, but I do think that this whole movement is a transition, and there are a lot of people that don't know about this whole new approach to running companies, and so therefore there's got to be some people to kind of keep track of, or kind of help the workers to assert themselves, and I think that's one of the roles that the organized labor can really continue to fulfill and enhance, and so that's kind of where I hope that it goes now, but it might go to socialism too, and that's kind of that is a self-defeating concept. So anyway, that's where I stand on it.
Well, I think right now one of the main problems I see with the current labor movement is that many of the union leaders think of themselves as an extension of management.
or as an extension of the Democratic Party. Yeah, both cases, I guess. We better step aside here for a second, and this is the Dr. Larry Show on the Bachelor Radio Network.
To promote my new flower shop, I had one place print my business cards, another print my brochures, and a third, my signs. Now my roses aren't red, my violets aren't blue, my geraniums look dead, and I don't know what to do.
Staples can help your business stand out with signs, banners, and brochures that are a true reflection of your company. And now at Staples, spend $50 or more on print and marketing services and get $5 off your next in-store purchase.
Now my business is blossoming, and I'm spending less green.
Exclusions apply. In-store only. End 6/23/18.
Blog Talk Radio.
You're listening to the Dr. Larry Show on the Bachelor Radio Network, and I understand that we have L.A. Bachelor back with us. And maybe my information is not correct. L.A.?
I'm here. I do apologize. Good evening to the doctors, both in making house calls this evening. I just have two quick questions for both of you. Yes, sir. Good to hear you, bro. And I hope all is well with you, Doc Bell.
Coming along.
Good. I just have two questions for you guys, and then I'll step aside. The first is, it's really, it's a question with emphasis on you, Dr. Fidowa. If socialism is a way to sort of advocate, production and distribution and exchange to be sort of owned by the people, and you're talking about helping the people, what's wrong with socialism? Same question for Dr. Bell. My second question is, there's a difference between, liberals and conservatives. I don't have a problem with either one. If you want to be liberal based on some people are socially liberal and economically conservative, and the opposite on the other side. African Americans by nature are conservative. We believe in God and all of the things and the morals that people claim, as Doc said, to shape this country. But there is a huge problem and difference for me between Republicans and Democrats. So my second question to you, Doc, and both Docs, is how do Republicans think that they can convince African Americans, black, brown people, minorities of this way of thinking in terms of conscious capitalism if we don't feel invited into the tent? There are some black Republicans, and I feel sorry for them in some cases, and that's not a disrespect to Republicans. It's a disrespect to their way of thinking, not knowing where most of us come from, and they haven't lived that experience. Doc Bell hasn't talked about it, but he's in Flint, Michigan. They're dealing with a genocide of water crisis there. They got bad water. Nobody's talking about it. That's part of infrastructure. That can lead to jobs and everything else. So how do Republicans, not conservatives, how can Republicans bring minorities into the tent? Because the ones that you have in our camp don't feel like they represent us. So those are my two questions. I'm sorry I got long-winded on the second, and if you need to go over, Doc, that's perfectly fine.
Well, what's wrong with socialism is it's just big government, and I was in the government for at least next to the government for a long time. I'm fully convinced that if you really want to screw something up, you give it to the government. It's just amazing that we've ever won wars, but there's also theoretical issues in that governments do not produce governments don't produce wealth. They don't produce profits. You have to have companies that produce the profits. Governments can spend money, but they can't make money. But so therefore, you've got to have somebody who's out there creating the wealth that the government's going to confiscate and distribute, and that the more you do that, the more that you confine government, the more that you have government go beyond its normal. There is a place for government. I'm not saying that capitalism run amok is just as evil as any as slavery or anything else. But we have in this country we have figured out how to put limits on capitalism, and by the way, organized labor was one of those major factors. To discipline it and to keep it moving in a productive but not a destructive direction. What we're talking about in terms of this new movement of these new capitalists is it's virtually a giant step forward in terms of the evolution of capitalism, because no longer are we talking about capitalism as being simply a matter of the owners using the workers to produce their own wealth and leaving places for their pride, their greed, and their avarice. We're now talking about business as a team. Any business, even a big, huge business, as a team of people that are all basically committed to the same goals, and that are. And a big factor is communication. For example, when you have shareholders meetings in a big company, it's the shareholders who go to it, right? Well, in this conscious capitalism framework, you've already had all of those all the data, including the profit and loss and the plans for expansion or contraction. Everything is out in the open, and the workers can and are supposed to go to even to the financial meetings of the board. It's and in fact they as part of their compensation in many cases they actually end up with the stock in the company, so that your shareholders and your employees overlap significantly. This is a whole new community version of capitalism. How do black people get into it? The same way anybody else does. You hire on to the company. You try to make your contribution as much as to the extent of your ability, and presumably, if you have a collegial atmosphere, people are going to recognize it, and you will advance and go to the level that you should occupy. Now, as far as your second question, and I by the way, I consider that a far more humane and free way of conducting our economy and our wealth, the distribution of our wealth. As far as the other issue about how do Republicans get black support, that's a cultural problem, and it's getting better, I think, because the polls are showing that there's more black support now of the Republicans than there has been ever in a long time, since maybe since Lincoln. And but I think that if you ask guys like Bob Livingston or Tom, our Tom, they have to go out and talk to them. And they have to go out. The candidates have to go and talk to the black communities, and I don't see them doing that enough. I mean, this is crazy. Why the heck they don't go out and talk to the black churches and the black social organizations and the black schools and so on. That to me, that I can't give you a good answer for that. But I will tell you this: they have to do it if they want to stay in power or get power. And I know that you, L.A., are felt strongly about that this is a big lacking in the Republican Party. I couldn't agree with you more. And I do mention Bob Livingston, who started out with about 10% of the black vote down there in New Orleans and ended up in 25 years as having about 90% of it. So it can be done. But I think we're running out of time here, and Dr. Bell,
no, Doc, I was going to say if you can, if Dr. Bell can answer, then you can close out. And by the way, it sounds like Dr. Fedor, the former politician and Bob Livingston, it almost is. It's not just cultural; it's regional. I have cousins in my family that are military that voted for Strom Thurmond and Jesse Helms, and they have a checkered racist past, but they voted for him because they're military. So it's a lot of different things, regions, culture. A lot of that stuff has to do with why, people of color don't seem to be under the umbrella of Republicans. That's my thought, and talking to people and just kind of doing the research. But Dr. Bell, if you can answer those last two questions, that would be awesome, sir.
Okay, L.A., for me, the term socialism is being used as a boogeyman. We hear people talk against socialism, but at the very same time, they share in it and they promote it. Corporate welfare is socialism. When you are,
I agree with that.
When you are rich enough to pay someone to do your taxes and look for tax loopholes and pay little taxes as you can, that's socialism. It also creates an uneven playing field. And for your second question, I can't answer it. I have no answer for it.
Well, I want to thank Dr. Bell for your coming on tonight and sharing with us your perspective, and thanks also to LA for giving us a little nightcap here. And this is the Dr. Larry Show on the Bachelor Pad Radio Network. We will say good night and God bless everybody, and listen in again next week.